Football Manager 25 is canceled. That's crazy. That is insane. That is beyond insane. It's beyond insane. But I'm going to cool it just for a second because there's a couple things I need to get out of the way before we just drop into the half pipe here. All right. One, there's a segment of people that are like, why are you that upset? It's just a video game. Don't worry. We're going to get to that. But the way that SI and Football Manager, the way the Sports Interactive has handled this Football Manager announcement and the way the game was delayed and then canceled, right? The way they handled it is as much of an issue as the fact that there isn't a game at all. And they have done some things that I believe are not irreparable, but are going to set the studio back for a very long time. Because trust is something that is hard won and easily lost. And what SI has done is basically lost all of the trust that people had in them, right? And obviously that's a first world problem, right? It's just Football Manager, but you say just Football Manager, you and I and a lot of other people spend tens, hundreds, thousands, if you're really unhealthy like me, hours playing this game every single year. And now the new version that we've been able to count on every year since we started playing the game, like clockwork, as promised by the studio, was promised, but then not delivered. So to those people that say there's no reason to get upset, I kind of sided with you a little bit the first time it was delayed, second time it was delayed. But if you're ever going to get emotionally invested in a game, there is stuff to be upset about here. The way it went down was I was about to get in bed. I had a flight back to New York. I was filming the latest episode of Hidden Grounds, which went incredibly well. I was in the Dominican Republic, and I needed to get back to New York early this morning. So I had a couple hours to sleep, and right as my head hit the pillow, I heard a notification go off, and I checked my phone, and it was a text from a friend that said, yo, Football Manager is canceled. I opened Twitter. I had 87 notifications, and I spent the next hour just kind of processing everything that was going on and reading the statement, which was this statement, which they then tweeted out again, which is interesting because, they usually don't tweet that much considering they have tweeted about one thing since announcing that the game was delayed 4 months ago. Anyways, the statement, we know this will come as a huge disappointment, especially given that the release date has already moved twice, and you have been eagerly anticipating the first gameplay reveal. We can only apologize for the time it has taken to communicate this decision, which is the first huge problem with this. This isn't the biggest issue, but it is the reason that I think the most people are upset. It's not the biggest issue for me anyways. No communication at all. I was present on the planet Earth when we were promised by this game studio that there would be a lot of open communication about the development of the game. I guess that only counts when things are going well. Because once things don't go well, the entire company takes time off of social media. And that's just not how it works. Now, obviously, I have somebody that looks a lot like me making YouTube videos, a dude named Zealandism. And what I have noticed about Zealandism is sometimes he makes videos where he just has terrible takes, right? Just absolutely awful takes. You watch him a few days later, you're like, that was dumb, whatever. And he gets panned for them, rightly so. But he doesn't stop making videos. He gets back to the grindstone, the stuff that made it great. He finds dumb, foolish things to make videos about on that Zealandism channel. And he gets right back to giving the people what they want, which is non-league nonsense, stupid, funny things happening, and just ranting and raving about them. Once things go wrong, once you do a couple of announcements like they did in the run-up to FM25 and then have to delay the game till March, if you go into radio silence, you've defeated the actual purpose of the transparency that you were promising earlier. The point of the transparency was to humanize the process. There is no humanization to this process now. It's just no communication and, the game's been delayed again because we messed up. Which, there is a collection of people that are talking about a similar train of thought that I had after the first delay. And just in case you missed any of the lore on this, they announced the game was coming out in November after kind of saying that it was coming out later than it was supposed to. They gave a roadmap of a feature unveiling, and then all of a sudden they just said that the game was delayed until March. It was just an announcement like that. It wasn't going to be ready, delayed till March. We'll bring in some, members of the Football Manager community to come in and play test it or whatever, and we're going to change some things around, and it'll be super ready for March, right? That was the statement. The no communication in the statement that came out in October or the end of September, in that area code. They said there would be an announcement at the end of January. January goes by, no announcement. That's the huge clue that something's wrong. A week later, they cancel Football Manager 25 entirely. So you're caught up. But after that first announcement, I made a video similar to this one because that was, at the time, the most unprecedented thing that had happened in Football Manager in a very long time in the Football Manager universe. And I said in that video that, look, they made mistakes in the past that led up to that moment, right? The game wasn't good. But they made the right decision in that moment instead of releasing a really buggy game to delay it. And I'm hearing people make that argument about this again. But you only get to play that chip once. At least for me, you only get to play that chip one time. Because the point of that is recognizing that you did wrong. The point of going, well, we messed up in the past. The game's not coming along as the way that we thought, so we're going to have to delay it again. We're going to have to delay it the first time. Cool. Learn from those mistakes and don't make them again. Because in that statement, you came out and you set a new deadline. It wasn't even a hard one. It was release literally any statement about the game at the end of January, and then the game has to come out sometime in March. It can be March 31st. There is a 31st of March. Ha, gotcha. It can be March 31st at 11:59 p.m. in Honolulu. As long as it's coming out in March, you have satisfied your promise, right? It was not like, we're going to release it on March 5th, and this is how it's going to work. And it was a pretty broad promise that they set out. And I would imagine it was pretty widely discussed. I was suspicious at the time when they said that March was the end of Sega's financial year. Sega being the parent company of Sports Interactive who makes Football Manager. Okay, I mean, that's a little fishy. That just reeks of, hey, you have to release a game within our fiscal year. Please get the game out in March. Business daddy, we must satisfy you. Which, I mean, that's how it works, right? If you're a company like Sports Interactive, having somebody like Sega over you, they're going to have certain rules. Like, we agreed that you would release a game every year, and that has to happen within this fiscal year. But I never in a million years, maybe I'm a sucker, never in a million years thought that they wouldn't actually do it. But before I get distracted, I wanted to finish that point. You can't just atone for your sins by going, we still have it. No, that doesn't work for me. That does not work for me. You already played the card. You realize that things weren't working that well, but you feel like after discussions of where we are now, you're going to be able to release a game at this time. And then you said that again, and then you didn't do it again. Yeah, they made a pretty solid decision in releasing this statement instead of releasing a really buggy game that's going to get panned. Because if they released a really buggy game in March, it would have been destroyed a lot more than a really buggy game they released in November because we had to wait like 4 more months to play it, okay? And that's how that works. And maybe they were aware of that. But if the only thing you're getting credit for is the fact that you can own up to your mistakes, eventually you have to like formally handle the mistake-making process that's, going on underneath that. You have to actually be able to take care of what is causing the problem in the first place, and that clearly still hasn't happened. Now, as somebody that's never worked in game design, this is where I step into a realm where I don't quite understand what's going on, but it doesn't pass the smell test for me that a game would almost be ready to the point that you announce that it's ready to release in November, and now all of a sudden it's not meeting the standard in March, unless they had a really long New Year's break, right? But if you're already in alpha or like a little pre-alpha and we just need to, take the sand duster to this and iron out and smooth out some of the edges. And that's what I'm assuming you're doing once you announce the release date because you know what you need to have to do. Of course, we would know this. We would know exactly what is potentially causing the holdup if they kept their word about being open in communication, which as this situation has deteriorated, as things have gotten worse, the communication has gotten worse. It's like a direct correlation. And of course, correlation does not equal causation, but at least they're going in the same direction on the graph. Yeah, I failed my stats test. We haven't even made it through the first paragraph. We can only apologize for the time it has taken to communicate this decision. Due to a stakeholder compliance, including legal and financial regulations, today was the earliest date that we can issue this statement. I'm not necessarily buying that. I'm just not. They released the statement. Apparently, Sega had like an earnings call or something, and the statement came out after that. So people were panning them for the time that the statement happened, which was basically 2 a.m. London, 9 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. in the Dominican Republic. It was in the middle of the night. Apparently, it was right after the Sega earnings call, so you can't really go after Football Manager for that. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it also doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense that there would be legal reasons that they can't say anything about the development of the game, let alone, the release date or whatever. I don't understand the legal implications there. I've never been in meetings that had to do with quote unquote stakeholder compliance. And I can imagine that Sega, if you go up to them and tell them, hey, the game's going to be canceled, right? They're going to want to try and time that announcement in a way that it hurts their stock the least. That makes sense from your business daddy, right? Like that tracks for me. But something, anything. A meme. I mean, a meme. The accounts weren't doing anything. They have an entire social media team that was posting nothing. There's no reason for that. They just vanished. I don't know. Maybe the whole social media communications department got to go on a really long vacation. Maybe they all got fired. I don't think so, but I don't know because they're not doing anything. They're not doing any of the normal things that a company would be doing, that a game would be doing. In a time frame where relationships with the community are more important than ever because you just delayed a game 4 months. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But I can't speak to exactly what this is. But it sounds like that they knew they were canceling the game for a while, and you just look, I don't know what the legal, come on. Really? We have always prided ourselves in delivering the best value for money games that bring you countless hours of enjoyment that feel worth every moment and every penny you spend. With the launch of FM25, we set out to create the biggest technical and visual advancement in the series for a generation, laying the building blocks for a new era. I know. That's why you spent 6 years working on it, because you were hiring people that could work in Unity in 2019. You picked the year to switch. Somebody admit that they f***ed up here. All right? Somebody. Responsibility. This has been edited by 400 people. And I know how that's how it always works. But I wish it didn't work that way. Somebody tell me what's actually going on. Somebody tell me what they can with a lawyer next to them and edit out the things that you can't say, damn it. Because this has been edited so hard, it sounds like somebody wrote the Declaration of Independence in the 21st century. Got a room of 200 people parsing every word. We know you were setting out to create the biggest advancement. That's why everybody was so excited. That's why everybody's so invested. And that's why I'm so upset that I can't play the damn game. And I assumed, foolishly, apparently, that it was understood the undertaking that was going to entail. I had this vision in my mind that they've had a separate team working on it for 5 years, 4 years, I guess, leading up to the start of this cycle. And they had a good understanding of everything that was happening. And they had made a lot of progress towards making the game because they had this whole separate team working on it. I don't know how many people were on that team, but if you're hiring people to work in Unity in 2019, they're not working on Football Manager now. FM22, FM23, FM24, because it's not in Unity. So they have to be working on this game. And then you make the conscious decision, if you are at SI, to switch it over this year. That is nothing other than a failure, which in itself is not awful. Everybody fails. I do it all the time. How many YouTube videos have I done that you never saw? Because the title sucked. The thumbnail sucked. How many Zealandisms have been released by that Zealandism guy where he just gets roasted? And if you really agree that you deserve to be roasted, that you didn't do well, then you go, you're right. Got to be better. What's the saying? The first step to solving a problem is admitting that there is one. That's what we don't get here, at least not in my opinion. We don't get that because fundamentally the studio itself decided to switch over to Unity this year, which it knew was a big technical and visual advancement, laying the building blocks for a new era. It knew all of that. And they chose to do it this year because they thought they were ready, and they were wrong. And that's a very, very big thing to be wrong about. But don't try and act like you were facing some impossible odds, some insurmountable challenge, when you yourself put yourself there. You put yourself at the bottom of this mountain that you had to climb, and you started climbing it before you knew how tall it was. And then you told everybody that you would get to the top of the mountain by a certain date. And then it was just a false peak. But we haven't even gotten to my favorite part of this yet. Due to a variety of challenges that we've been open about today. You've been open about? Open about? Where? Did I need to get out my Ouija board to understand what the hell was going on? Nobody was telling us jack. And if you're talking about the few updates that basically, to sum things up, just removed a few features to the game, which again, people understood as like, yeah, It's a big advancement. People were giving y'all the benefit of the doubt. They were giving y'all the benefit of the doubt because we understood how big of an advancement was. And you do a couple of announcements about features being removed from the game and the mindset of the team and stuff. And that's it. We haven't heard anything else. We haven't seen anything else. No surprise drops, no surprise trailers, no nothing. Just straight bad news. Not even bad news that you can pretend is good news. Just like bad news, bad news, bad news. And I realize there might not be a lot of good things to share. But if you have a game that was allegedly a month and a half away from being released to the general public, I'm assuming you can take a bit of footage of the match engine, a picture, a new gen face. You can do... I mean, I'm just handing out free marketing ideas here. You can just start showing the attributes of the players. I mean, you could have fun interactions on Twitter to distract people, to engage with your fan base, to distract people from the fact that the game is delayed, to keep Football Manager at the front of your mind, and just post Jude Bellingham's attributes for the new game and put some question marks in there and have people reply to the tweet or the Instagram post or the TikTok and try and guess what his attributes are in the new game. That would be being open about something, literally anything. And if you are having challenges, if it's just, wow, this one part of the UI is just really not working, and the game's not going to function until we get this working, and so we've got to figure out a solution to it. We're working as hard as possible, right? But they're not open about anything. And to claim that they've been open about the variety of challenges that, that have faced them. No, they just give vague platitudes like it's the biggest technical and visual advancement for in the series for a generation, laying the building blocks for a new era. That's all they say. They say that, and oh, by the way, we're taking something else out of the game, which, by the way, if it's canceled and we're going straight to 26, are we getting anything back? Are shouts coming back? Or is international play coming back? Certain features of the online game that were removed with the promise they'd be added back later. Well, now we're headed to later. There is no now. Now is gone. Or are we just going to get the game that was supposed to come out in November of 2024 in November of 2025? And honestly, at this rate, I hope that's possible. We currently haven't achieved what we set out to do in enough areas of the game, despite the phenomenal efforts of our team. Okay, I know a lot of people that work at SI. That's why these sorts of videos are more complex for me, right? You know that I've been to SI's offices multiple times, right? I've posted pictures from there. That's not a surprise. I've met the people that work on the game, and to a person, they are all nice. They are all good people. And as far as I have ever seen while I am there, they're very good at their job. This is why in the last video, I was so confused as to what's happening. And on stream, after they didn't post an announcement in January, I was so confused as to how those smart people in that room could just be messing it up. But if everybody on the team actually put in a phenomenal effort and the game still wasn't able to come out 4.5 months after it was initially supposed to, like a full 5 months if it's the end of March after it was initially supposed to, then that's just not a phenomenal effort from everybody. When you're making a game as a team game, and there's a lot of people that did a really great job, but at a certain point, somewhere, someone messed up. Each decision to delay the release was made with the aim of getting the game closer to the desired level. But as we approached critical milestones at the turn of the year, it became unmistakably clear that we had not achieved the standard required, even with the adjusted timeline. My brain is just screaming why after that, right? Whilst many areas of the game have hit our targets, the overarching player experience and interface is not where we need it to be. This is like the only why answer they give, the overarching player experience and interface. That gives me the impression that this is UI-based, but if it's UI-based and that means they have a really good-looking, slick match engine with good graphics and everything, I have no idea why they're not giving the community morsels to hang on to in anticipation of the game coming out. That just seems like 101 in appeasing the fan base and like, hey, we have made a lot of progress. This game's going to be sick. Here's like a 3-second shot of some dude volleying a ball into the back of the net. We'll see you in a month, right? Nothing. But they at least hint that this has to do with the fact they're overhauling the interface, and I guess it's still just super busted and doesn't work. As an extensive evaluation is demonstrated, including consumer playtesting, we have clear validation for the new direction of the game. Boom! My best theory for the cancellation, by the way, is that after the initial delay, they actually attempted to change a lot more in the game than they probably should have. And they picked a new direction. And now they're saying that their evaluation and consumer playtesting have validated that new direction. But, we need like another 7 months, 8 months. What is it, February? Game was supposed to come out in March, April, May, June, July. August, September, October, November. Yeah, it's 8 months. That's a cool 8 months. 9 months from now, wow, that sucks, to actually polish the new direction they've decided to go. And are getting close. However, we're too far away from the standards you deserve. And now we enter into the paragraph which is feeding the conversation around, well, they made the right decision at this point and we should cut them some slack. We could have pressed on, released FM25 in its current state and fixed things down the line. But that's not the right thing to do, which is correct. The problem is once you start using this line, which you could literally copy and paste into the other statement and it would make complete sense and echo the exact same answer, you lose the sympathy vote. You just do. Like, you got to address why FM25 is still in its current state and needs to have a bunch of things fixed down the line when you've been working on this game longer than any other game you've ever made. We were also unwilling to go beyond a March release as it would be too late in the football season to expect players to then buy another game later in the year. Couple of things here. One, March is already stupid late in a football season. The only reason that they're not going to release it after March is because that's the end of the fiscal year. So they're already going to get a game in the next fiscal year. And they finally decided, or had it decided for them, or a little bit of both, that it is better to bite the bullet, take the huge loss they're going to get from just not releasing a game and reset next year instead of trying to release the game this time and then figure out some sort of schedule for releases later, which, far as I would imagine, they never really had a plan for, because I don't think they were ever really that sure this game was going to come out in March. At least when that announcement came out in October, there had to have been some little thing in the back of their mind where they knew that March might be hard to reach. If you end up in a situation like this, there had to have been some sign of that way back in October. And don't even get me started on what game was going to get released in November if it's now been canceled and delayed an entire year. I don't know what was going on in that room when they decided to announce the release date of the game in November. No clue. But yeah, the only reason that they don't want to release it in April is because the fiscal year is turning over. That's the only thing that passes the smell test. I mean, the football season starts in August. The release of Football Manager late in November is already way later in the football season than you'd want to release a game like this, evidenced by EAFC, which releases way earlier in the season. Like, the release dates have been getting pushed back already. March is beyond insane. So the calendar turning over to April wouldn't be like the pearl clutching moment they're trying to make it sound like. Through the cancellation, every effort is now focused on ensuring that our next release achieves our goal and hits the quality level we all expect. We will update you on how we are progressing with that as soon as we are able to do so. Here's the problem with that. I don't believe you. I have no reason to believe you, because multiple times you have said stuff like this and it has not happened. I hope you do. I hope Football Manager does. I hope it gives us surprise announcements and little ads and little, things just to stay on the timeline and in like a trail of breadcrumbs leading to November to try and make the community comfortable again, because at least they're communicating. And obviously, while doing that, they're going to get roasted a lot because they didn't talk for months, which always makes it worse whenever you inevitably come back, especially when you come back with this. But yeah, I just don't believe it. And I don't think anybody can come up with a good reason for me to believe that as soon as you are able to do so, you are going to update us on how you are progressing. Thank you for reading, your patience, and continued support, though. They'll always have my continued support. I'm addicted. I am one of many people that is pathologically addicted to Football Manager, right? But there is a much larger group of people that are not, that will not always play it now and forever, that are not married to the game. And there's nothing wrong with not being married to the game. The vast majority of video games you play, you are not married to that game. And those are the people that this sort of loses. There was a lot of hype going into FM25. You had the women's game coming in for the first time. You had a full UI and graphics engine, like graphics and match engine overhaul. You had a lot of big streamers starting to mess around with Football Manager in anticipation of the new game coming out. All that momentum, gone. Puff of smoke. All the news articles, instead of women being in the game and Football Managers in a new era, it's on BBC that they've canceled the game. This is an utter disaster in every way imaginable for me. In communication, in public relations, public relationships, and obviously logistically. At the core of this is a problem within the studio where there is now a repeat disaster of not understanding where the game is at. I used that analogy of the mountain earlier, but it's like they're climbing the mountain and they don't know how far they have to go. You got to find a guide. You got to bring in people that have worked in Unity before, somebody to help. I mean, I don't know the first thing about game design, and I don't know the first thing about shareholder meetings. But what I do know is that if you come out and you say something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then you come out and say something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then you do that a third time, you're just not going to have any trust left from the people you're interacting with. And when you make a game like Football Manager that people play a lot and become emotionally invested in, you are putting something out in the world, and you're hoping that they care about it. And that's been successful because a lot of people do care about it. And now they want to know about the game. And now they want to know when the game's coming out. And now they want to know they're going to be able to play it. And they're getting ready and they're buying the pre-orders, which have been refunded. Because again, these aren't bad people. At least I don't believe these are bad people, running this company. You can't be surprised if you're SI, if you create a product that a bunch of people spend a ton of time playing and get really emotionally invested in, when those people are then really emotionally invested in when the game's coming out. It is a part of the job. It's in the job description. If you are watching this, do not attack these people online. Don't get carried away. Don't make it personal. That's all dumb. Okay, because these are people doing their job. But hold them accountable. That's what I'm trying to do here. I have a great editing team. They hold me accountable. Nobody can function without somebody out there to hold them accountable. If I get videos in late, I'll have somebody sit me down and be like, you're messing up. You need to be more timely. If you say this is going to happen then, it has to happen then because you got these other people relying on you and you got to do this. And I have people in my corner that are able to help me when I fall off the wagon like that. And hopefully this video, our reaction here is the holding accountable, helps create and motivate a reckoning that ends up producing a much more positive result. Because the real question is, where is Football Manager going to be 5-10 years from now? In this decision, if it goes very well, if the product is brilliant in November, could be just a bump in the road. But if the game comes out in November and it's anything but great, heaven forbid it's buggy, heaven forbid there's an obviously broken animation or short throw-in that's just easily exploitable and transfer bugs all over, and they took 2 years to make that. Technically, starting in 2019, it'd be 6. With I'm assuming a scaled down team kind of working on the side. So as this keeps getting pushed back, it gets harder and harder. The bar to start rebuilding trust gets higher and higher. And they've got to, at some point, solve the issues that have plagued the production of this game to be able to clear that bar. Because eventually we're going to reach a freaking Olympic height here. And it's just going to keep getting harder to do. Regardless, yearly sports games are dumb. I wish yearly sports games didn't exist. Give us a huge update every few years and a roster update, but apparently financially, workflow-wise, nobody seems to want to do that, and so we are stuck with, apparently, this. But Sports Interactive has dropped the ball with Football Manager so massively here, it is unfathomable to me. If you had told me back in September, October, that the game would be completely canceled, unfathomable. And that's a sign of the goodwill they'd built up. That what they promised, they genuinely delivered. They need to find a way to be able to do that again. Because when people don't trust a game, when people feel like they've been taken advantage of or hoodwinked and led astray by a game, they play it less. And that's never a sentence you want to hear if you're working at a gaming company. But Football Manager 25 is canceled. See you on stream.